across the sea of character sheets, deep in the forest of D20s lies the mountain of source books.
Welcome to the Mountain of Source Books. I'm your host, Jeffrey Vincent Dale, and I'm joined today by Steve.
Hello.
And Rose.
Hi.
Today we're going to discuss our final thoughts on Microscope. We'll just get right to it. We're going to start with negatives this time. So I'll go first. Mine's kind of nitpicky. It's literally only here because I need to be able to say something. I wish I had more kind of like deep dive questions about the setting. Stuff like what kind of government there is, what the tech level is, stuff like that. If putting it into the actual game, I think would interrupt the flow, but like having it in the back as like an extra thing you can do, I think that would be nice.
I'll go next. I don't know. That sounds like an interesting. I like kind of like your idea. Maybe you could just like add them in randomly or something. Like I don't know. Maybe after like each step, like each person, you like randomly pick a question and like answer it. That would be cool. But I was actually kind of thinking. I do wish that so at the end of each person, like someone else had to like pick a topic from it, a main topic, and then like do something off that, like another scene, another event based off that. And I kind of wish like that had a maybe like a more unique rule with it, like how in the last one we did a scene. It's like, oh, you have to do a scene, or you have to like something kind of different than being able to choose the same things you could choose as every other time. I think.
Yeah, so like more like a push to add more variety to what you're doing then?
Yes, something that made it more unique than just having the same options that you had regularly.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, kind of the same here, where it's like, it's not that anything that is in the game is bad. It's that it feels like when you're like playing through the game, like you get into this pattern of we do this type of event, we do this type of event, we do this type of event, and then it's like nothing breaks that up, and it's like for one session that's fine, but when you're like, well, we came back to this again, like it just feels like you just get into this routine of like we make all of these different events, and then eventually you get to this level where you're like, oh, well, we've never touched on this subject ever again. And that was like in the setting decades ago.
Yeah.
It's like just really minor nitpicks because I overall enjoyed this game.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well go into positives then, because we're already right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, like all of these things we're saying, they're all nitpicks. It's a pretty good system. We already mentioned during the earlier stuff about how great it was, how open it is. Just you can do pretty much anything with it. I like that you can jump around, that you don't have to necessarily go in order. I feel like it invites some creativity into the mix. Yeah, it's just a solid system. I like the rhythm of it, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Okay, now we have to have everybody dance when they play it.
Dance, dance, dance. Rhythm, rhythm, rhythm.
We are all very white. None of us have those.
Yeah, this game was really fun. So like especially doing like a one shot like this. I haven't played any other like games like this whole like word creation. I've seen a few different ones played by other people. And they all seem really cool. This one like seems to like have just the right amount of rules where it's like, oh, you could just like go play it without like having to think too much, and there's like just the right amount of structure to have creativity, but still like make it somewhat of a game. And it's really good because I think having everyone like kind of say something after each other really helps with cooperation, and it makes it lots of fun. And I will say, like, I think we got a pretty interesting mystery out of it, so it was like really cool seeing like going from nothing to something. And if it was like just me, like everyone, like when people would ask stuff that I wouldn't even think of, so it was kind of like really cool having us work together. And I think it made the word a lot more unique than if like one of us just thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of on the opposite note, there is actually a really easy way to get like competitive about stuff too. Like if you really want to, because it's like you can have a specific thing that you want happening, and you can push towards that on your turns and things like that. And it can kind of go back and forth if you really want to. Now, of course, obviously there is the other side that since you don't have any specific characters, technically, like we made some characters, but most of the time that was just so that the players, understood who these people are, as opposed to, had anything specific happen to them. So it's like none of us cared what happened to these things, but you can put that in the game. You can if you want. You can have people be like very petty at each other if you want.
Make it less, well, depends on the group.
Yeah, and I've mentioned this before in other games, but we are a very not competitive. What's the other word? Cooperative. There's the word. We're a very cooperative group. We don't like. We like making things, I think, more than we do tearing each other down. And I know people who are the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. One thing I kind of forgot about that I really liked, because it was right at the beginning of the game, is where you make that list of things you would like to see happen. It doesn't have to, but also the like hard nose of things you don't want in the game.
The hard nose are always a good thing to put in the game. It's kind of that level of, hey, this bothers me, is always something that you like a game having a tool to avoid stuff like that. But just the idea of like, I hate this in this genre, we're not doing it, is just so good.
Yes.
But I mean, the fact that you can like tell people, hey, I like this idea, here's my idea, let's put this in here.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's nice because those aren't even like you have to do them, but like I think like I used your idea of having fairies like guard the tree, so I'm like, oh, let me mention those and make sure that they're added in.
Yeah, and another thing I like that it has over, I mean, the only other sort of world building game like this that I'm familiar with is The Quiet Year. That sounds like a fun game, but at the same time, there's a lot more prep for it. I believe it has like a card drawing system.
Yep, you have a whole deck, and so there's a lot of stuff that's like, this type of event occurs, you like have to work with this resource specifically, and it's like, you made these resources up, so like it's kind of hard to actively care about them as much. And I know this is not a review of that game, but this one's more focused on the story surrounding these things, and it's all broad and expansive, whereas that one's like, it's about a colony of people who kind of have a hard life. And it's like, both create things, but the other one definitely like feels more specific and like straightforward into what they want.
Yeah, this one, it moves faster, it's easier to get started. Just overall, I like it. And of the two, it's the one I would probably pick.
Other negative, now that I think about it, a little too much organization, though. We talked about it when we started. If you don't have a table, it's really hard to organize everything. That was a bit rough. We managed decently with a Google Doc, but it's not definitely not designed for an online game.
Yeah, it required a workaround.
I'm just thinking back of how we got really like into color coding.
Yes,
the
color
Google
coding
Doc.
everything, because that was actually extremely useful. But like, if you weren't paying attention, like if you didn't notice it in the recording, there were a lot of pauses where we were just like, let's figure out how to get this set up because this makes this easier for me to understand.
Yeah, I had to cut that out.
Yeah.
Like I think the first episode, it was edited down from like an hour and 15 minutes to 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
wow.
there were some pauses in that. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you have fun.
Yeah, I edited out all the pauses and mentions of color coding because I'm like, this is a little too behind the scenes.
No, the color coding was the best part. I would also say, like, I'm like now thinking about it because like, oh yeah, you had to color code like because you had to say if it was like a good or bad event. I did think, I mean, I guess that was good for the game, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know if this is good or bad. Or like,
Mhm.
I just want to do an event. Like, I don't know if it needs to be
Yeah.
black or white, but
I think that's just a context thing. I imagine there's times where it's like, this seemed like a bad thing at first, but when you look at it like on the overall amount of events, it's like, well, that was overall positive. It's just, we didn't know where this was going yet.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we accidentally stumbled upon the benefit of that, though, in that we would try to go, we would be making events, and then we would realize, oh, you know what? Things are a little bit too light. Let's go a little bit more dark.
Yeah.
And then we shifted again. And yeah, I feel like that kind of caused us to be more conscious of the variety
That's
in terms
true.
of tone. I see what you're saying about it being a little restrictive, though, and maybe having like a neutral option.
Yeah, I think neutral would definitely help where it's like, I am actively intending this not to have as much impact in terms of sadness or happiness or whatever.
Yeah. I guess maybe that's just a way to try and like prevent that. Because if you just put it out neutral, you're like, that's not a story. But
There has to be some conflict in a story, otherwise nobody cares about anyone.
yes,
Mm-hmm. But yeah, overall, very positive thoughts on it. I would definitely suggest getting it.
Yeah, the only thing is you gotta have a decent group who's good at like paying attention to like a bigger picture, because I could definitely see certain groups I've played with being like, yeah, I forgot about everything that happened before this point of the game, so like I'm only focusing on this.
Yes, and make sure you have either a big table or a well-organized Google Doc.
Yes.
yes. Get the color coding decided beforehand.
Because yeah, it is a lot of information, and especially if you're like, I have to walk around this table at all times to like put stuff over here, put stuff over here. It's like, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Honestly, like doing the Google Doc actually I think would probably be the better option, because the table seems like it would be more overwhelming.
Yeah. It was easy to look at. I guess if you like did a table with like flashcards, that would be nice because you can move stuff around.
Yeah.
But the Google Doc was really good. I guess like just have someone assigned to write. Well, I guess me and Rose were the ones mainly writing, I feel. No, we all wrote our own stuff. What am I thinking?
Yeah, you guys went in and color coded it after.
Yes. Yes. You would write stuff and then we would color code it.
It's almost like we're both very like obsessed with organizing because our lives are in horrible chaos at all times or something.
This is the only control I have.
Good times.
All right, I feel like we should wrap up there. The current plan is for Teach and I to review Dungeons and Dragons: Wrath of the Dragon King or Dragon God. I can't remember. It's
Oh,
the
no.
direct to DVD Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out in the early 2000s. We've already watched it. It's a bad movie, but it's bad in a different way from the first D&D movie.
Was it a king or a god? According to Google, it's god.
Okay.
The first D&D movie is bad in like a very campy and fun way. I think the second one was just like this is just not fun. It's been a while since I've watched it, but yeah, that's what it seemed like to me.
But yeah, you'll be able to hear our thoughts on that soon, probably in 2 weeks, but it's not for sure. It's all up to how Teach is feeling.
Mhm.
The next game we play is going to be Spooktacular, which we looked at last year and never played. So we'll be playing that this year for Halloween.
Who are you gonna call?
Us, apparently. All right. Well, with all that said, thank you for joining us. Be careful on your way back down the mountain.